Jesus' name we pray and ask it all. Amen.
All right, the first item on our agenda are presentations. The first presentation is going to be removed for tonight. The individual to receive the presentation is out of school on a school break trip, so we'll reschedule that. So we'll move to the second item on the agenda, certificate of recognition to the Gearheads robotics team from Boyette Junior High School. Mr. Belisario.
Thank you. Let me get to the mic. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to make a presentation to the Boyette Junior High robotics team. I think it's a fantastic thing that they're able to accomplish to win the robotics at the state level for junior high. It's the first school in St. Tammany Parish, or Slidell, to achieve this great accomplishment. We've got various plaques. I want to bring out that in the back is Mrs. Wynn Williams. Stand up, please. When I announced this at a East Chamber public policy meeting, she agreed to fund the payment of the 14 plaques that we have. And I had another gentleman, Victor Hess of Executone. He was making a $200 contribution to help defer their travel costs to San Diego to compete in the Nationals. That's coming up in a few months. So I just wanted to recognize her and thank her for what she's done. This is great. As you can see, we got all the plaques. Where is it? Over here. Okay. Where's the other ones?
They're over there, on the other, beyond it.
Yes. What are you working on?
Those.
Here it is. We will not read all of the student ones because they're all the same, but all I want to do is read the resolution itself to the Gearheads, which states, whereas the Boyette Junior High robotics team from Boyette Junior High, a public school in Slidell, Louisiana, has participated 5 years in the international first competition, which first means first inspiration in recognition of science and technology. And whereas Boyette Junior High's robotics team competed at the Louisiana First Lego League regional competition this year and won the Champions Award, distinguishing themselves in all aspects of the competition, including robot mechanical design and programming, robot performance, research presentation, and teamwork. And whereas the Champions Award is the most prestigious award and recognizes the team that embodies the FLL experience by fully embracing our core values while achieving excellence and innovation, both the robot game and the project. And whereas the Boyette Junior High robotics team representing St. Tammany Parish was the only Louisiana team to win this award, which qualifies them to compete internationally in San Diego, California. And whereas the Boyette Junior High robotics team has a history of success at the Louisiana FFL regional competition, in addition to the 2013 Champions Award, it has twice placed second in robot performance, won a robot mechanical design award, and won a core values teamwork award. Received the runner-up in Champions Award and won a second place Rookie Teams Award. And whereas the Boyette Junior High robotics team in St. Tammany Parish has consistently displayed gracious professionalism by looking for opportunities to demonstrate their robot, give presentations, and help other teams. Therefore, be it resolved that the St. Tammany Parish Council does recognize the Boyette Junior High robotics team for the year-long efforts to design and build their robots, create their research projects, and to excel at all competitions representing St. Tammany Parish in the state of Louisiana. And be it further resolved that in St. Tammany Parish Council does recognize the team members, parents and families, coaches, teachers, and community and business sponsors for the success of a true team effort on the 6th day of March 2014. Give him a round of applause, please. I would like to bring up Patricia Coy, who's the faculty sponsor, Clark Rowley, who's the co-coach, and Kevin Stokes, who's a co-coach. Clark Rowley is an oceanographer at NRL. Kevin Stokes is the professor and chair of Department of Physics at UNO. Okay. Kevin, and there's, let me see which one. Okay, take that back. John's not here. I got one of the kids. Okay, that one? Okay. There's one for the school principal. I think he's out of town because of the week off in school. Okay, I'd like to pass out the plaques.
Do you want to take a picture then, or just?
Yes. Let's take a picture of just the four of them with us. Come on in. Come on.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Geez, good.
Okay. Thank you. What we can do is to start with Richie Ortega's district. What I found interesting, there's 10 students on this team. 5 are from District 9 and 5 are from District 13. So we'll start with the District 13 students. First one is John Hyde. Joe, he's not here? Oh, here he is. Come on up. Sorry about that.
Joseph Howard.
Yeah,
I got Joseph Howard on here.
so do I.
Joseph, congratulations.
Okay, the next one for District 13 is Carter Stokes. He's the son of one of the co-coaches.
Who's that?
Carter Stokes.
Carter, congratulations.
Okay. Congratulations. The third student is Julia Abel. We'll hold that and give it to one of the parents. We have Peter Fabre.
Congratulations.
And the last one from District 13 is Anna Yu, Y-U-E.
Congratulations.
Okay. From District 9, we have Matthew Busby.
He's
Not
not here.
here? Okay. The next student is Corin Grant. Okay. Doing well
One
here.
more is right there. They're all in Disney World.
Probably. Hold that. Okay, the next one is Brendan Lederer. Not here? Okay.
People showed up.
Okay. The next one is John Yu, Y-U. He's out of town too. Okay.
My people showed up.
His people showed up, mine are out vacationing. The last person is Clara PQ, and I know she's here.
You got a pen for him?
Yes. Hold on. Yeah, I have pins for all of them. Oh, you already have
I
yours?
gave all mine.
Okay. All right, I only have to give out one. You want to move over this way?
Come on, is everybody?
Come on, you get the center. There you go.
There you go. Come on.
That'll work. Can you all fit in?
Y'all got 'em? That'll work.
All right, thank you all.
Who we gonna give these to?
Gary?
Oh, you want to give them all to?
Yeah, Gary,
Yeah, we're
you
gonna
too.
give them
Gary,
all.
we'll give these, since you one who inspired me on this. Not a problem.
If you don't mind.
Thank you, sir.
I wanna see the things work.
We're just going to take about 3 minutes for a presentation. Thank you.
Pleases the council, I'd like to present you with the 2013 state champions, the Gearheads, and they are going to give a short presentation of their robotic skills. And I want you to understand that these 7th and 8th graders, you're looking at your future engineers, your future rocket scientists, and your future, period. So thank you all very much for running an incredible public school system, and we're fortunate that kids get to go there, so thanks.
As you can see, this robot right here, we designed, built, and programmed it to do various missions to compete with the other, to compete at various levels. As you can see, it doesn't work perfect every time.
Nothing does.
Yes, especially when we're at a presentation. But we designed, and we went through many design phases and built this robot. We've come up with this design, and this is just a small demonstration of our table that we have brought to this demonstration today. As you can see right now, that grabbed cat and dog and safely knocked down a tree branch without getting it knocked on to the power lines. Each year, it has a certain theme. This year's was Nature's Fury. So all of them are themed to natural disasters. As you can see, that last one, we rescued a cat and a dog and safely removed a tree limb without getting it caught on the power lines. This next mission is going to grab a truck and retrieve supplies from the back of it. See, and some of these are very simple, and our next mission, we will use a few sensors. We have 2 light sensors that are located on the back bottom and 1 touch sensor that is located on the back. As you can see, right now it is using the touch sensor to find that black line, as it did. And the light sensor, my bad. This is the touch sensor, and it found the back plate, and it was supposed to knock it over again.
There's normally a wall behind it to stop it, like in the competition, so it would like fall over, but there's not a wall, so it just kind of rolls.
Yeah. So,
That's all of them.
this is just a small
Wanna show yours?
demonstration. This is our robot that we have won the state championship with.
We also have another robot that we're going to show one mission of.
Yes, this is the robot that we plan on bringing. This is what we have so far of the robot that we plan on bringing to the international championship in San Diego. And we have a small mission that will use light sensors and nifty grabber to get some supplies. As you can see right now, it's looking for these black lines that you may or may not be able to see. And it's going down and not working.
It missed the first one.
So now it's going to go back and find the next black line, hopefully.
I want to restart.
It's just, okay, let's try that again.
It's their first government presentation, so
Works a lot like government, right? Trial and error.
And this is our first prototype, so we haven't put much.
Thank you all very much, Gearheads. We appreciate your time and presentation today.
Thank you.
I just wanted to congratulate the kids and say this brought back memories. I have to tell you, my son is a Fontainebleau High graduate. He was a summa cum laude graduate at Bama in electrical engineering. He's currently working on a doctorate in robotics at Georgia Tech. Another St. Tammany Parish student.
Madam President and Council, I would like to just say that I'd love to take all of the honors for funding this, but I have to say it was the fine organization of the North Shore Leadership Alumni Association. We do have some alumni in the audience here. I'd like to recognize them if they'll take a moment to stand up, because the reason that we did this was we wanted to recognize these young future leaders that we know that they're going to be coming to our organization and becoming you one day. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a presentation of Roland Golden as Visual Artist of the Year.
Mr. Golden? Come up. And Jennifer, please come up also. Thank you very much, but I have something to say about you first. Before you get your award, we're going to talk about you a little bit. I don't think I need to introduce Mr. Roland Golden, nationally recognized artist who resides in Folsom, Louisiana and Natchez, Mississippi. Roland Golden is listed in many art directories, including Who's Who in American Art, and has won countless awards from New York to California. He has had over 100 one-man shows in galleries, cultural centers, and museums in the United States, as well as a one-man touring exhibitions in the former USSR in 1976 and 77, and in France, 1993 and 95. Mr. Golden's works are in countless private and corporate collections in the United States and abroad, and also many museums. He has also juried many prestigious exhibitions, and his work is published in numerous art books and magazines, including The World of Roland Golden in 1970. Congratulations to Roland Golden on his Visual Arts of the Year award. Thank you so much for all you do, and we're happy to have you in St.
I'm
Tammany.
very proud to receive it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Thank you very
Let me
much.
introduce Jennifer Bushnell also, who was in charge of our President's Arts Awards this year, which I missed because I was snowed in Dallas. And Mr. Golden wasn't there, so at least I got to give one award away. But thank you, Jennifer, for all your work on that, too. So here's the award. Oh, come on. Wow. Nice. Would you please? There. There. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you very much.
He is truly a St. Tammany treasure. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm next up also. There you go. You do it.
Proclamation of March is American Red Cross Month.
Oh, you want to read this one too? Okay, thanks. I am especially proud also to be able to read this and make this proclamation, because the American Red Cross is so important to so many lives. March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they are in need. American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day. They volunteer their time, give blood, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to help those in need. We would like to remember our heroes here in St. Tammany Parish who give to help people in need. They work tirelessly to help in time of disaster when someone needs life-saving blood or the comfort of a helping hand. They provide round-the-clock support to members of the military, veterans and their families, and teach life-saving classes in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. Across the country and around the world, the American Red Cross responded to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and wildfires. The tragedy at the Boston Marathon, the typhoons, Haiyan in the Philippines, sorry if I mispronounced that. When an injured service member ended up in a hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offered comfort. When a hospital patient needed blood, American Red Cross blood donors helped them. When a lifeguard jumped in to save a drowning child, or someone stepped up to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross was there. We dedicate this month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now, therefore, I, Patricia Brister, St. Tammany Parish President, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of St. Tammany Parish and Louisiana, do hereby proclaim March 2014 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian missions. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand the 6th day of March in the year of our Lord, signed by me as Parish President and Reed Falconer as Council Chairman. So thank you to the Red Cross. Congratulations. Thank you. And I wear my Red Cross. That's not an alert, that's my Red Cross bracelet, so I'm happily. Thank you.
All right, the final presentation, certificate of recognition to Jimmy Lloyd has been postponed also, so that will conclude the presentations that we have for this evening. I'm going to give a little information for the public. This is the first time we've done this, so just bear with me as I go through some comments about the structure and operation of the Parish Council. Your Parish Council has formed a communications work group to discuss suggestions for improving communications with the public. I encourage any members of the public wishing to participate in future discussions of this work group to contact the Council office. It is our desire to be better at our jobs and to ensure fairness and transparency in all of our operations. To help provide some clarity and understanding, I will speak to certain items of our operating procedure before we begin our meeting tonight, the balance of our meeting. First, I want to explain the difference between an ordinance and a resolution. Basically, a resolution simply states the intent of the council. It does not have the force of law. It's enshrined in the Home Rule Charter, and it describes, for instance, the ability the council will give permission to the administration to move money, is an example of a resolution. Ordinances, on the other hand, have the force of law. We handle ordinances in two steps in the Parish Council. The first step is the introduction of an ordinance. So after we handle resolutions, you'll hear us discussing the introduction of ordinances. This also is set out in our Home Rule Charter and starts the process of creating law. An introduced ordinance lays over until the next council meeting, during which the council and the public has the opportunity and responsibility to review the ordinance and prepare for the public hearing, which takes place before the ordinance is approved at the subsequent meeting. I might add that we have an agenda review committee that meets the week before the regular council meeting, Wednesday night, same time, 6 o'clock. And I suggest that the public engage at the agenda review committee the discussion of the ordinances, because it's a much less formal procedure. We we generally operate under Robert's Rules of Order, but in a much more relaxed atmosphere. And many of the department heads from the administration are there in attendance to answer questions. And it's a good opportunity for the public to engage the details of ordinances before they come into this body, where we're a little more constrained, particularly with regarding time. What you will hear us do in just a second is begin pulling some items off of the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of general items of council business, such as the minutes of the previous meeting, resolutions, and ordinances for introduction. Generally, we discuss these items fully at that agenda review committee that I just mentioned, and do not review them typically at the council meeting in such detail. The consent calendar is voted upon, all items together, by one vote. However, an item may be pulled from the consent calendar by any member of the council or the administration or the public for discussion and introduction by a separate motion. When we then move to the items for approval, the ordinances for approval, the Home Rule Charter requires that the council, charges the council with the responsibility to ensure that all members of the public may speak on items in that public hearing setting. It actually refers to the ability of the public to speak to all items on the agenda, but particularly gives emphasis to the public hearing portion, which occurs when that final ordinance is approved. In those public comments, I will do my best to be as respectful and courteous to all speakers as I can. I ask that when speaking, that the speaker reciprocate in that spirit of courtesy. We're beginning a process tonight of utilizing comment cards. If you wish to speak about a matter on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card that will be available, located at front at either end of the railing. Here's an example. And give it to a staff member at our staff table and to the right, my left, your right, of the dais. So this particularly adds to our ability to collect the name and the address for the speaker that is entered into the minutes by the clerk. That's been difficult. Note that the ordinances under which we operate limit your comments to 2 minutes per person, except in the case of appeals of zoning commission action, which provides 5 minutes per side. Time is always kept by the parliamentarian, who will indicate when you have exhausted your time. Please, when you're making your comments, address the chair and do your best to remain on topic. Make declarative comments. Questions, if you have questions, they will be directed by me or the person in the chair after you complete your comments. If deemed necessary by the council, we will table the item under consideration until those questions can be answered. Or we may refer you to an appointment with the staff to discuss your specific questions. Please do your best not to repeat yourself or others that have spoken previously. So I will be happy to entertain procedural questions as we move through the agenda, but our communications work group felt it was important to brief those procedures with the public at this time. So thank you for your patience. So the first request that I've had is a request to open the off-the-floor agenda and move those items up. Normally they would appear at the end of the agenda, but there are some items that are pertinent to our discussion tonight that, and people in the audience that want to engage in that discussion. So the request has been made to move those items up. We will have to suspend the rules in order to move those items up. So I'm going to look to my colleagues here to make a motion that we do that.
Yeah, what are we moving up?
Mr. Chairman, I'm the one that requested that we move up the 3 items off the floor.
The entirety of the off-the-floor agenda. We're going to vote on them one at a time or
Yes.
all at once?
Well,
State law requires that we vote on them each, correct?
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Which one of these is an emergency item? Number one, the way I read it, is a follow-up to what occurred last month, and there was no emergency with that. The moratorium may be one, because it's, I believe it falls in with a zoning request, and why we have to move forward with to implement the random forensic type audits. I don't see it as an emergency, because the legislators, they're going to go in next week, and there's plenty of time to move on it. So I'm just looking for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Belisario. Mr. Stefanski?
yes, I would agree there's not one on item 1, which is the presentation by Fire District number 12, but they are here and would like to, and they have a group here that just didn't want to keep until the end of the meeting, and that's the reason why that one was on here. The other two, I do believe, fall under the emergency from a standpoint of, number 2 is for Fire District number 1, they're in the process of trying to buy some property, and they're into the negotiations, and they really need to get this cleared up. We're under a moratorium, and we got to move this piece of property out from under that moratorium. And then number 3, the reason that I put that on is the IG group has made their recommendation, and in talking with the business people of the parish, if we are going to try to adopt a forensic type audit this year on anything, we need to move on it fairly rapidly. We're already into the 1st of March, and this would need to be completed along with our current audit. Even though they are different audit teams, it would be primarily to be done by this July. If not, then we just need to put it off for another year. And I think what we were trying to do was be proactive in adopting the IG's report.
I understand all 3. I personally, myself, number 1, is it an emergency? It's something that I think should just be held over to next month. The moratorium is also tied in to a zoning case, and that whole process takes you a minimum of 75 days. And you can be looking at vacating the moratorium as that paperwork is going through the process. And the IG thing, I don't think it's that immediate. That's just me.
Right. Mr. Stefanski, do you want to, I'm sorry, Mr. Bender, I didn't realize you had your light on.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing that I think that if we have an issue on an item off the floor, such as presentations, which we moved up in the past as a common courtesy, okay? I think that's totally understandable, okay? But I just want to say this, and regardless of each one of these, I don't know that it's good business to move up all items off the floor above our consent calendar. If we've got a presentation that someone wants to make, I totally understand wanting to get them up so they don't have to sit through the whole meeting. But we have to sit through the whole meeting. These items came in after the agenda closed. And I just don't know that it's good practice to start moving all of them up before the consent calendar. Then there's no reason to get things in before the close of the agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Falconer?
Yes, Mr. Canulet.
On number 1, coming from the QA, this needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed tonight. It can affect the ambulance service of this parish. So I think it's very important that we get this addressed and get some answers tonight.
Mr. Gould.
Yeah, Mr. Falconer.
Thank you.
A technical question
is the request to open up the items off the floor or to move up the items off the floor?
Right now, it's to open the items off the floor,
Okay.
as I understand.
And we're going to vote individually or
Okay, let me
all
clarify
at
the
once?
motion. Let's clarify the motion, Mr. Stefanski.
No, it's to move up because these are basically considered part of our agenda. If you're going to open for items off the floor, you're going to take things that are outside of tonight's requirements that would be come up without having written the resolution or whatever it is. You would have to present everything at that time. I don't mind voting on these separately. I just, and that's okay with me if I want to, and I'll change my view and I'll do it one at a time and then we'll see whether or not, if you don't want to discuss it, let's take it and get rid of it. One way or the other, I don't care. I would like to ask that item number 2 on items off the floor be moved up.
All right, there's a motion to move item number 2 off the floor agenda up to this present moment. Is there a second for that motion? Mr. Tanner? All right, is there any further discussion? Mr. Bellisario?
Did we already make the motion to open up the off-the-floor items?
But there was no second to that motion, Mr. Bellisario. Thank you. But we do have a motion now to move up item number 2. It's been, the motion's been made by Mr. Stefanski and seconded by Mr. Tanner. Is there any further discussion on that motion? This one will have to be unanimous, right? All right, please vote. All right, the motion fails.
12 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent.
Does anyone else want to make a motion on the items off the floor? Mr. Stefanski, you've got your light on?
I would move up, I would ask that we move up item number 1.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll second that. Seconded by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Stefanski, you've got your light still on?
They're here, they're ready to make a presentation if we, I'm wanting to see it moved up. If not, then I'll probably have this item removed from the calendar later on. I'm not going to keep them here all night for something. We'll work with them later on if we have to.
Is there any further discussion? Therefore, please vote.
Motion fails. 9 yeas, 4 nays, 1 absent.
All right, then we'll move into the balance of the, or the body of the agenda. I have, let's see, just 2 items to pull. All right. I have 2 items to pull. Resolution number 1, C-3894, and resolution number 11, C-4003. Mr. Sharp, do you have any items that you wish to pull? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Gould? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Groby? Mr. Canulet? Mr. Bellisario?
Number 12, Resolution
Resolution
4004.
4004. All right, Ms. O'Brien, is that it, Mr. Bellisario?
Yes, it is.
The one?
Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Stefanski? Mr. Bender? Mr. Artigue? Mr. Smith? All right, so we have just pulled items off of the consent calendar. Those items will be handled one at a time, and now we'll vote on the approval of the consent calendar in its entirety. Do I have a motion? Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, the first item that we pulled was under resolutions, item number 1, Resolution CS number C-3894, resolution to approve the appointment of Anthony Smith as Director of the Procurement Department for the remainder of the 2012-2015 Parish President's term of office. We've got another item on the agenda under ordinances, 5154, that will establish this position in the organization chart. So we need to table this item until after that ordinance is heard. So do I have a motion to table this item? Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Groby. There's no debate on a table, so please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, the next item on the agenda is item number 11. Resolution CS number C-4003, resolution to concur or not concur with the Covington annexation and rezoning of 4.2 acres, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion to concur by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion? None appearing, then please vote.
Mr. Chairman, while you are voting, do you mind if we recognize Mayor Mike Cooper, who is in the
Sure.
audience tonight, who is listening for this vote, I believe? So,
Welcome, Mayor Cooper.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, the last item that we pulled from the consent calendar is item 12 under resolutions. Resolution CS number C-4004, resolution to set the salaries of the employees of the St. Tammany Parish Coroner's Office pursuant to Louisiana House Act number 181. Mr. Belisario.
The only reason I wanted to pull is to make sure Mr. Stefanski can tell the public why we're doing this. Since he's not talking to the individual either from Fire District 1 or 12, basically what we have seen here is a real load on DNA analysis in the coroner's office, and they were short of technicians, so they've gone out, they have come to us, they have a person they want to be able to hire, but we have to approve, and so that's what we're doing with this motion here. So I make a motion to approve Resolution C-4004.
Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Bender. Is there any further discussion? All right, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, the next section in the agenda is the appeals, the appeal section. We have 2 items for consideration tonight, both of which have been removed or withdrawn, so we need to go ahead and vote to concur. Item number 1, Perry Rucker and Kenneth Sessions appealing zoning commission approval on January 7th, 2014 to rezone 1 acre east of Cary Road, south of Sticker, north of Purcell Road from A2 to A2 in a manufactured housing overlay, Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Belisario, would you like
Yes.
to make that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to concur with the zoning approval. I was able to work out the differences with the parties on both sides, so I'm pleased to make the motion to concur.
Okay, motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Anyone in the public wish to speak? None appearing, then let's vote. Motion is to concur.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Mr. Belisario, can I get you to move to introduce an ordinance?
I'd like to make the move for the ordinance for introduction.
Seconded by Mr. Canulet. All right, thank you. Item number 2, Terry Lewis Stevens appealing the zoning commission approval on February 4th, 2014 to amend the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code, Volume 1, Section 5.27 and 5.28 and 5.29 relative to buffer setback and height regulations. I need a motion to concur.
I move to concur.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould. I heard also, so seconded by Mr. Artigue. Please, is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Very well, then, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
And Mr. Gould, could I get you to make a motion to introduce? Great. Seconded by Mr. Tanner. Thank you. All right, that completes the appeals for tonight. I can't believe we did that so quickly. Ordinances for adoption, then we'll move into, and this is the point where we will have the public hearing portion of the meeting, the formal public hearing.
It's the next one.
Wait a minute. Yeah, Edward pointed it.
That's also for,
Carla, 21.
yeah, the same.
Okay. Thank you. All right, the first one, ordinance calendar number 5109, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Drainage and Flood Control, to amend and establish the boundaries of Drainage District Number 2, Ward 9, District 13. That would be you, Mr. Artigue.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor, seconded by Mr. Canulette. Any discussion on the ordinance? Does anyone have anything to say from the public? Very well, then, let's vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 2 is ordinance calendar number 5130, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, by adding a new article thereto, creating the Highway 434 Economic Development District, Districts 7 and 11. Let's get a motion on the floor. Mr. Groby, motion by Mr. Groby, seconded by Mr. Artigue. I believe, Ms. Eads, you have signed up to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Parish Council, for allowing me to speak here this evening on this issue. My name is Bonnie Eads. I am here representing the North Shore Business Council, the North Shore Legislative Alliance, as well as the East St. Tammany Chamber. On behalf of these business associations, we'd like to express our support of the ordinance considered today for the development of an economic development district along the I-12 corridor at the Highway 1088 interchange, as well as the interchange at Highway 434. We believe strongly that the economic development districts will provide for a better parish control of business growth along the strategic areas of the I-12 corridor. The Economic Development District will be able to establish the standards in advance of anticipated business development to ensure high-quality business growth that is cohesive in design and thus visually attractive. It's vitally important to the parish because we believe it'll help attract higher quality jobs for our residents, especially our children, those who graduated with four-year colleges, and those that attend the technical community colleges. This managed economic development district standards will give the St. Tammany Parish a competitive advantage by attracting industry, business offices, and retail establishments, providing for new, high-quality jobs and additional tax revenues to help the cost of infrastructure improvements within these designated areas. Thank you for your time and your consideration in this matter, and we hope that you'll be able to support us on these two ordinances. Be happy to entertain any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Ms. Eads. Does anyone have a question of Ms. Eads?
You.
Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Eads, first, thank you for coming tonight. I wanted to just ask, and maybe I can ask the parish president at the same time. I'm in support of the economic development districts, okay? I just want to make sure that my vision is maybe connected with y'all's vision, okay? I want to see St. Tammany be able to bring in those kinds of businesses that, you know, right now, other than retail, okay? And I'm assuming that's our main purpose here, is that correct? Not that we wouldn't have retail, but we want to make room for other than retail.
Industry.
Industry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whether it be, you know, a company with 20 jobs, 15 jobs, 80 jobs, whatever. So I just want to be clear, we're basically looking to preserve gateways off the interstate systems to provide an incentive, a good location, easy access, et cetera, to bring in other than retail. Is that a simple way to put it, Madam President, or Ms. Eads?
If I could answer that, Ms. Eads, Mr. Chairman, if I could answer, yes, that is our goal in attracting corporate offices, businesses. While the zoning will determine what can go there, it's already zoned.
Right.
We won't be changing that, but we'll encourage businesses that you just talked about to come there. We're hoping that with the districts and with the things that we will be able to encourage them to do to enhance how those areas look, then they'll be more inclined to come to there. That is the case.
Thank you. I'm on board.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Thank you, Ms. Eads.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I have also a card from Mr. Andrew Gibson. Mr. Gibson?
Thank you. As a native of St. Tammany Parish, going back at least a few generations, I want to thank President Brister, Don Shea, and their staff, as well as you, the council, for your thoughtful leadership on working out these business developments. As someone who's seen a lot of peers have to go elsewhere to look for employment over the years, as we struggle and fight to become independent economically, I think it's a great sign to see this thoughtful leadership and this type of economic development come to the area, especially in as much as it's measured and it's consistent and it's set out in such a way that the proper phases are going through at the proper time. And I think it's a great sign for the parish, and I wanted to give my shout out of support as a native and as someone who's involved with the parish business community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. All right, that will then close the public hearing. Are there any further comments among my peers on this item? Anything from the administration? No, thank you. Anything from the staff? Very well, then, let's vote. There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Falconer, while you're counting the votes,
Yes, ma'am.
might I just add, Mr. Groby did have a public meeting last night, which he was asked to do, to explain some of the details, and I appreciate his taking the time to do that. I think it answered a lot of questions for people. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Motion's unanimous, one absent.
All right, we'll move then to item number 3, which is ordinance calendar number 5131, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, by adding a new article thereto, creating the Highway 1088 Economic Development District, Districts 5 and 7. So I need a motion to begin debate.
Move on it.
Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Groby. Thank you, gentlemen. I have 2 speaker cards on this item, Mr. Edward Poitevin and Mr. Carlo Hernandez. Mr. Poitevin, would you begin, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the council. Because my time is limited, I don't want to waste your time. I'm going to read a statement that I have. But the bottom line is that I think this is something that is very much in the best interest of this parish, and I support and urge your adoption of it, like the other ones that have been created. First and foremost, the parish has to create the district here for 1088 in order to strategically position itself in order to compete with other places, not only in this state, but also in this country. This sort of advanced planning is a standard best practices use of land planning opportunities in other parts of the country and this state, and really needs to be adopted here in order to position this parish in a sensible way to advance economically so that we remain competitive. It's clear that our I-12 corridor is the alignment spine, if you will, of the parish, and if you glimpse at a map, you will see that that is true. This is going to be, north of it in particular, the area where growth for this parish occurs. In turn, the alignment of I-12 and the parish areas that have been created already, as well as the one for 1088, will provide a major development corridor that will bring good jobs, quality jobs, and will allow for best practices in order to develop the opportunities that this parish so desperately needs. It will allow for sensible best practices and not allow for helter-skelter planning like we've seen in so many places in this area. It will minimize conflicts with residential land use and capitalize on the heavy traffic volume and ease of access that is associated with major highway interchanges. If this parish council creates the proposed 1088 district, it will provide the parish an important new tool by which long-term economic growth can be guided in a sensible way and will allow later for design and development standards to be adopted by this council in order to effectively compete with the other areas that this parish must compete with. As President Brister has said over many times, this proposal for 1088 merely establishes the district's boundaries. It does nothing else. The parish council and leadership will have many opportunities to return at a later time with proposals such as design standards and implementation of either sales taxes or hotel occupancy taxes and other increments to support development. But in all cases, the parish council approval must be obtained for those details. The devil truly is in the details later. Existing zoning classifications will not be impacted in any way by the adoption of this economic development district. Further development must still comply with customary zoning requirements and permitting, and careful design will be made in order to enhance the effectiveness of this parish.
Mr. Boydum, that tone was that you've exhausted your 2 minutes, so I need you to wrap it up.
I urge you, please, to adopt this ordinance for 1088. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your cooperation. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Carla Hernandez. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I spoke last month about this particular ordinance, and you know, one of the points that I tried to make was that there are in residential zone districts within this economic development district. Now, I have a map in the back in case there's someone who doesn't believe that, but in any case, I know I didn't attend the meeting last night. I think at least one council member can vouch for where I was in attendance last night in a zoning commission meeting. But what I'm requesting is that if in fact we are not going to develop residential developments using various taxing districts, or mechanisms, I should say, that let's remove them. Why not remove the residentially zoned districts right now? Why, if in fact we're looking at commercial and industrial, and I'm assuming hospitals and anything medical, I guess, anything else, then let's remove all residential zones. And that's what I'm requesting that you consider, please, removing residentially zoned districts from this economic development district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. All right. That's all of the cards that we've received. That will end the public hearing. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Very well, then, let's vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
The next item on the agenda is ordinance number 4, ordinance calendar number 5142, ordinance to extend for an additional 6 months the moratorium on Airport Road North, Ward 9, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk.
So moved.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Canulet. That permits us to have discussion. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay. From the staff, Mr. Stefanczyk.
Only Mr. Falconer and Mr. Stefanczyk, because there was an off-the-floor item that affected this moratorium. I wanted to ask Mr. Stefanczyk, before the council considers adoption, if you want to consider amending that ordinance to exclude that particular piece of parcel and adopt it as amended.
I think that the thing that I have on the items off the floor will be brought up again, and as far as I know, it will supersede this since it passes later in the meeting, so it will be a change to this. I'd just soon do it that way.
Okay.
All right, is there any further comment? Not appearing, then let's vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 5, ordinance calendar number 5143, ordinance to correct the road inventory including Danny Ray Road, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Gould. Seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Comments? Very well, vote, please.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 6, ordinance calendar number 5144, ordinance establishing a no parking zone on Selborne Street, Ward 9, District 12. Mr. Bender, motion by Mr. Bender, seconded by Mr. Artigue. Any comments? Any comments from the administration or the staff? None appearing, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 7, ordinance calendar number 5145, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 4.13 acres from I-1 to I-2, District 14. Mr. Smith.
I move on the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Artigue. Is there any further comment or discussion? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 8, ordinance calendar number 5146, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 5.82 acres from A2 to A2 and RO rural overlay, Ward 9, District 11.
So
Mr.
moved.
Stefanczyk. Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Smith. Is there any further discussion? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 9, ordinance calendar number 5147, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 40,000 square feet from NC4 to A4A, Ward 9, District 13. Mr. Artigue. Motion by Mr. Artigue, seconded by Mr. Bender. Is there any further discussion on the motion? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 10, ordinance calendar number 5148, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 86.26 acres from NC1 to NC1 and rural overlay, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any further discussion on the motion? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 11, ordinance calendar number 5149, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.3 acres from A2 to A2 and manufactured home overlay, District 13. And he just left. Mr. Artigue. Is there motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Is there any further discussion? None appearing, please vote. Looked up and he had missed him.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 12, ordinance calendar number 5150, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 80.89 acres from I-1 to I-2, District 14. Mr. Smith. Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Bender. Any further discussion or questions? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Number 13, ordinance calendar number 5151, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3 acres from A1 to A2 with manufactured housing overlay, District 1. Need a motion. District 3. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any further discussion or corrections? Please vote.
Mr. Gould, Mr. Tanner? Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item 14, ordinance calendar number 5152, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.41 acres from A3 to A3 and manufactured housing overlay, District 7. Mr. Groby.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby. Do I get a second? By Mr. Stefanczyk. Any further discussion? Not appearing, please vote.
Mr. Gould? Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item 15, ordinance calendar number 5153, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.115 acres from A1 to A2, Ward 5, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any further discussion on the item? None appearing, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 16, ordinance calendar number 5154, ordinance to amend ordinance section 2-091 and section 2-092 of the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances for the reorganization of parish departments. Motion by Mr. Tanner. Who was the second? By Mr. Gould. I've got a note here, this needs to be amended so that it'll be effective immediately upon adoption. You'll make that amendment, Mr. Tanner. Will you second that, Mr. Gould, please? Let's first vote on the amendment. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Now on the underlying motion, on the floor by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Gould. Is there any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I
Gould.
believe we had a related resolution.
Right.
Can we-
C-3894.
Can we now hear that?
Yes. Resolution number 1. Let's move back. We pulled that and tabled it, so I'll need a motion to lay it back on the table.
So move.
You make that motion, Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, resolution then on the table right now will be number 1, Resolution CS number C-3894, resolution to approve the appointment of Anthony Smith as Director of the Procurement Department for the remainder of the 2012-2015 Parish President's term of office. Motion by Mr. Tanner, is there a second? Second by Mr. Sharp. Is there any further discussion on the item? No. Mr. Bender.
For information purposes only, Madam President, can you just tell us the, on directors, I know we need to know what the salary is?
That salary for that director?
Yes.
Yes, $65,617.50 a year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Any further questions or discussion? Not appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, item number 17, ordinance calendar number 5155, ordinance to amend the 2014 operating budget, amendment number 2. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, who was the second, Mr. Groby. Motion is second on the floor. Is there any discussion on the item? 17, item 17. Madam President, did you have anything you wanted to present? Okay, great. Not appearing, then please vote.
Mr. Ortiz? Mr. Belisario? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, the next item, item number 18, ordinance calendar number 5156, is an ordinance to amend the Parish Code, Volume 1, Section 5.14, NC1. And on the advice of council, I need to recuse myself on this item, so I'm going to pass the gavel to the vice chairman.
Falconer. Ms. O'Brien?
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend to make this effective immediately upon adoption.
Your second.
Second.
You have, okay. Okay, I got a second from Mr. Stefanczyk on the other end. And is there any other things that we need to add to that?
There's one additional one, and that would be to amend it to permit you as the vice chair to sign in place of the chair.
Can I hear that motion?
So moved.
An amendment to the amendment which makes it immediately adopted and then authorizing me as the acting chair to sign the ordinance. Can I have is there any discussion on those two amendments?
You got to vote on them separately.
No, I said amendment as amended.
Oh, as
All those in favor, please vote. Be slow.
You did. Oh, motion is unanimous with one recusal and one absent.
Is there any discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, please vote.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
You voted on the amendment to the amendment, now you gotta vote on the amendment.
That's what we're doing.
No, you only voted once.
actually put both amendments together in one, but we can do that if you want, Steve, but it's not necessary.
I thought you Rich, had school board
I thought you were
days.
following parliamentary procedure.
Do what?
I
That
thought
is
you were following
parliamentary
parliamentary procedure. I'm gonna let it go, forget it, okay.
Please vote on the ordinance as amended, please.
All right, I gave him as hard a time as I could.
Motion is unanimous with one absent, one recusal.
Mr. Falcon, welcome back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. We'll move then to item number 19, ordinance calendar number 5157, ordinance to amend ordinance CS number 1-030 regarding a major amendment to the PUD for 1.61 acres, Ward 4 Districts 5 and 7. I'll need a motion. Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Groby. Mr. Hernandez, I have you down for a comment card on this item.
Thank you. Carlo Hernandez. I don't know if anyone else read what was online for this ordinance. I did. Let me tell you, what's online is a previous proposal. That was their first proposal. The proposal that went before the zoning commission and was adopted, and I appealed, was a revised one. This, the one that you have online right now, is the earlier version. It has all of the land, many more land uses than what was finally recommended by the zoning commission. Also, the covenants, was also an earlier covenant proposal that was on there. It had several mistakes in it, which they corrected in their revised proposal, which was, again, recommended for adoption by the zoning commission, which I appealed. So what you have before you is a much different recommendation or proposal than what was recommended by the zoning commission. So I would hope that if that's your intent, then obviously you're adopting a much different thing that I appealed in some of the areas that I've already described. And let me just tell you that it is a much different proposal than what I appealed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Council, would you describe what we have on, online or in the, before us today as the final version?
I defer to Sydney. Can you?
I assume he's talking about what's on the council agenda. I'm not sure.
If it's, if it has not been changed online only, that's what I understood. He would say, we certainly will change what's online. It was just an oversight not changing it. But if it's correct here in your packet, I believe that is correct. I think that's what he said.
That's all our question is, Madam President, is whether or not our packet that we're voting on is the correct one.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. O'Brien.
I was noticing it said something about W1, W2, W3. What's W?
Those are the zoning classifications of the PUD. That the PUD has its own distinct zoning classifications.
Hey, Maureen, Ms. O'Brien, would you turn your microphone on, please?
Okay, I was just saying, it was not listed online in the
Right.
description of the zoning, and I think that may be part of the confusion.
I think it may be, and that certainly was an oversight not changing online when it was changed, but it is here. And there it is.
Excuse me, Madam
think
President.
it
but
was
the-
in our packet on
The question
page
here is whether or
42.
not what we have here is correct.
That's what we're looking to
Not
make
what's
sure.
online. I'm
Right.
going to leave that.
We're
to-
looking to make sure that that is the case. And for those who...
That's in our packet, but not on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Smith.
while we're doing our in-house checking, I'd like to ask Mr. Hernandez if he would come up and point out for us what those substantial differences are if they're not too lengthy.
You have 15 minutes?
No, we
Chair.
don't. And Mr. Smith, I would prefer that you direct your questions
sorry.
to the chair so we can maintain some control over how the
Thank you.
information flow occurs here.
Thank you for that observation.
I'm not going to open up the floor again for another 2 minutes until our staff resolves the question that we have before us.
Thank you.
We're looking through the pages right now. It's quite
Mr. Canulet, would
extensive.
you like to make a motion to table this item until we get that information? We can move on the agenda.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to table till we get it.
We got a
We'll come
motion to
back it.
table.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith seconded. There's no debate on a table. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, then that item has been tabled. We'll come back to it. Item number 20 then is ordinance calendar number 5158, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 5 acres from A1 to A2, Ward 2, District 6. That would be you, Mr. Tanner. Great. There's a motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any further discussion on the item? Not appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
We'll move to appointments. Resolution to appoint Robbie Robinson to Parish Sewer District Number 4 to replace David Haynes, who is retiring. I need a motion for that. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Appointment number 2, resolution to appoint Mike Gambrell and Sean Dahl to Parish Rec District Number 16. Several districts. Is there a motion for this appointment?
Have a
Mr.
motion.
Smith, seconded by Mr. Bellisario. Any discussion on these two appointments? None appearing. Oh, did I see a light, Mr. Bellisario? I'm sorry.
I was just going to speak, no, just want to say these are two fine men who have been participating and not able to vote to move this rec district forward.
Great. Thank you. Any further discussion? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
We'll move to discussions and other matters. Item number 1, discussion on the formation of a council work group to address establishing criteria for passing motions to rezone property from the council to the zoning commission. Mr. Bellisario.
I'd like to table this, you and I, because of our schedules, haven't been able to get together. We were going to talk tonight after the meeting, you said a date and time.
Could I ask you to change that motion to postpone it rather
Yeah,
than
to
table?
postpone, it's fine.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Motion to postpone by Mr. Bellisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
Mr. Bellisario. Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Discussion and other matters, item number 2, motion to refer to the zoning commission for recommendation the proposed rezoning of 11.466 acres from A1 to A1A, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Gould. Any further discussion on the item? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, the final item for discussion then is motion to refer to the zoning commission for consideration to include the use of farm winery under administrative permits under the rural overlay. Mr. Tanner.
This is a motion for consideration to include the use of farm wineries under administrative permits for rural overlays that allows for the sale of bulk of wine from premises where the productions are manufactured pursuant to such permit, the offering and tasting of free samples of each wine to visitors and prospective retail customers for consumption on the premises of the farm winery. The sale at retail from the premises of sealed bottles or other sealed containers of such wine for consumption off the premises. This is the request of a gentleman who has a winery in my district who is making wine and selling it at farmers markets and what have you, and it seems to be very popular. He would like to, but he's not authorized to have wine tasting at his farm or sell it in sealed containers at his farm. And what I understand, and working with the Department of Planning, this is an amendment to that rural overlay section of the ordinance that relies for the administrative permits for this. And I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Did you want to make it in the form of a motion?
I did.
Good. Who was the second? Seconded by Mr. Thompson. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on this item? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Mr. Falconer, Mr. Chairman, we have an answer to the question that was asked
Great, then
before, if you're ready
we'll
for that.
vote
or-
to move that item off or lay it back on the table. Motion by Mr. Canulet to open the floor again on this item number 19, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote. Oh, you got to clear the.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, the item is back on the floor.
The list of uses in your packet tonight is an early version of the list. In fact, that list was changed before we went to the zoning commission. At your hearings last month, you had the correct versions in your packet, so it was in the 1 month copying or whatever happened, the wrong list was added to the the two lists were switched somehow.
What they voted on last month was.
You know, so when you had your hearing last month, when you looked at the appeal,
So
when
it
the
was
ordinance was
properly
introduced,
introduced.
it was properly done. But the packet today has an old version of the list.
What's the pleasure of the body?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I have
Mr.
a
Gould.
question at this point. Is the commitment that was made at the meeting about when we had the appeal, that there would be no heavy industrial included in this? Was that noted in the correct?
Well, it's not listed as no heavy industrial. It is a list of in that particular part of the, it's a list of uses that has research and development, data centers.
Right.
General professional office medicals. It's that list of uses as opposed to something prohibitive, no heavy industrial.
Okay.
So the list of uses would prohibit that, it's just not
Correct.
spelled out specifically.
All right. Mr. Falconer, I'm comfortable with it. We just got to make sure that we get the right paperwork that you sign. Yeah, we had a motion in a second.
I think that the best avenue to take in this situation would be to postpone this for 1 month, have it properly, the
Advertised.
public, yes.
Right. Okay.
So that way, there's no urgency to having this adopted. That way, we avoid any complications in the future, any challenges.
All right, I'll move to postpone.
Motion to postpone, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Non-debatable motion, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, we'll move to items off the floor.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Belisario.
What I did during the meeting, I spoke to the individual from Fire District 1 on
Well-
this item, and when Steve was making his presentation,
Pardon me, Mr. Belisario, it's Fire District number 12.
I want to talk about the one dealing with Fire District 1, excuse me about that, which is
I see.
item number 2 that deals with the 6-month moratorium. When Steve was talking about, one thing that didn't come up, and I wasn't aware of it, is that they're buying some land and have 60 days to make a decision on it. And I feel if we delay this by 30 days, it could jeopardize the whole process. Plus, I was advised that since you still had, with the moratorium lifted, I wanted to make sure that things could move forward on the zoning commission. So I need really Sydney and Pateri to confirm, because if that's correct, then I'll want to re-vote on this, and I'll vote to move it forward.
Okay, the only thing that we did not do before was we did not move it up in the agenda. So I appreciate your eagerness to move to number 2, but I want to keep in line with the agenda
Okay.
here and discuss the item number 1, presentation by Fire District number 12 to answer questions as a follow-up. And the question here is, do we open the floor for this item?
No.
Mr. Canyon.
Make a motion to open the floor, off the floor items.
Okay, there's a motion
All three of them,
by
1, 2,
Mr.
and 3.
Canulet. No, we're going to do just number 1 first.
Okay.
Do I have a second to Mr. Canulet's motion?
I'll second it.
Mr.
Because I'm
Stefanski?
gonna withdraw.
Very well, let's vote to open the floor on item number 1.
I'm just going to withdraw this thing.
No, it's
Mr. Chair, I apologize, hit yes, I wanted to hit no.
Motion fails with 4 nays, 9 yeas, and 1 absent.
very well, then we'll move to item number 2.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Say again?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Mr. Stefanski.
I'm going to maybe ask that somebody who voted in the affirmative reconsider their vote so that we can remove this from the agenda. That's what my intention was going to be when this came up this time, was to remove it from the agenda. As you can see, Fire District number 12 is left. I told them, since this had my name on it, as far as I was concerned, I was satisfied with what they were doing, and I'd like to get this removed from the agenda, because otherwise it'll come back up next month. And I don't really want it, and it'll come up as a regular resolution regular something next month, so.
Mr. Chairman.
I'd just soon ask that it be pulled off,
Having voted on the affirmative side of that last motion, I move to reconsider.
It has to be on the affirmative side, which means it failed.
I know, I voted nay.
You voted nay, okay.
Okay. I'll second that.
So we have a motion to reconsider,
Yes.
opening the floor for item number 1. All right, there's a motion on the floor to reconsider opening the floor for item number 1. Is there any further discussion on the reconsideration question? None appearing, please vote. Oh, look at my cheat sheet
You want to vote yes? Oh, yes, to reconsider. So I can withdraw it, yeah. Yeah. I didn't ask for that. Gets me.
Motion to reconsider passes with 10 yeas, 3 nays, and 1 absent.
All right, now we will vote again to open the floor on item number 1, presentation by Fire Protection District number 12. Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, we just opened the floor for it.
No, that was the vote to reconsider the
Vote to
item.
reconsider puts the motion on the floor. Puts the item on the floor.
But the motion to reconsider had 3 nays.
That doesn't have to pass unanimously.
No, it's a 2/3 vote to reconsider. We're now, is it?
Isn't it? I just want to get rid of it.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. I'm not sure what the answer to this is. I'm going to consider that an appeal from the ruling of the chair. Okay? So, I need to have a sense of the body whether or not the chair's decision that the item is on the floor now for consideration to open the items off the agenda is to be sustained or overturned. That's a majority vote, appeal from the ruling of the chair. Have I completely confused you?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
As chair, I've ruled as a point of order that we just voted to open the items, to reconsider the item that we voted on previously. Now, in my opinion, we should be voting on whether or not to open that item off the floor. We've just gone back to where we were before.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
And we can clarify that with a majority vote of the group. Yes, Mr. Bender.
I completely agree with what you're saying. And the reason is that if we just reopened it, okay, reconsidered with 3 or 4 nays, if we allow this to come off the floor now with 3 or 4 nays,
We're not meeting the 100%.
then you could get a positive vote to hear it when Mr. Gould and others blocked it from coming off the floor to begin with. So my opinion is you're absolutely correct.
I would like to have a vote to sustain the ruling of the chair.
So a yes vote sustains
A
your
yes
ruling?
vote sustains my decision. Please vote. No, that we're just reconsidering the item.
Reconsidering whether or not
Whether we're going to open it. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The ruling of the chair is sustained. Now we will vote on whether to take this item off the floor agenda. I presume, is there any further, there needs to be a motion. So, Mr. Stefanczyk, I presume you're making that motion. Mr. Gould has seconded it, that we're going to open up the off-the-floor agenda.
Let me.
No.
No?
This
Not the
item,
agenda,
this item,
just
the
this
way
one
this
item.
goes, the way this vote has gone, this will come up next month. And that's the only choice we have at this stage, is that we have voted down everything else to hear this thing tonight, to move it off the agenda. And so I was going to move it off the agenda. Right now, we put it in a position where we can't even discuss it.
Is that the nature of your vote, your motion, to move it off
I'm
the
not-
agenda?
I-
You don't have to make it, I just thought
I'm
this
not
was your
gonna,
deal.
I'm not gonna make it, that's gonna be what I would do, but I'm not gonna make that
Mr.
motion.
Canulet,
because-
motion by
because I
Mr.
don't believe you can do
Canulet,
that.
seconded by
From the
Mr.
agenda.
Gould. Is there
I'll
any further
second.
discussion?
What is the motion?
The motion is to take item number 1 off the floor.
Off the floor.
To take it off the floor.
Open it up
Wait,
off the
to
floor.
open up off the floor for another vote?
Correct.
I don't think we should do that. I don't think we can do that.
Excuse me, I think the motion should be,
We have reconsidered
We can't do anything
the motion,
with it. It's
the item. Let me correct it. Let me be very clear.
We
We've
didn't
just voted
reconsider.
to reconsider the item. We're reconsidering it now. The question is, do we move it off the floor? We don't have to move it off the floor. We can go to item number 2 at this point. But on the table right now is whether or not we're going to open the off-the-floor agenda for item number 1.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Bender.
could I just, one final thing? Mr. Stefanczyk, it seems to me, wants to open off the floor to take it off the agenda. Am I
That's
correct?
He can do that.
So that opening off the floor doesn't result in a different vote. Can we open off the floor for the purpose of removing it from the agenda? Can we do that, Mr. Hand?
So
Like it's a separate motion
it's a separate motion. We can do that,
Unanimous vote to
but it takes a unanimous vote.
to remove.
All right, I'll make a motion to open the floor solely for the purpose of removing it from this agenda.
Is there a second to that motion?
Well, that's presupposed that we'll vote to remove it from the agenda.
I just let it go, Jerry.
All right, well, look, I'm out.
Besides,
It still takes.
we had a motion.
To do that, it still
We
takes
had a
100%
motion
vote.
to open up off the floor. You can't,
Right. I'm with
So-
you. I understand.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to open the floor for item number 2.
Very well. Wait,
Yes.
you had a motion and a second. We gotta have to vote on number 1.
all right, Mr. Canulet removes his motion to bring up item
Okay.
number 1. Does that do, the clerk over here is having a stroke. You think we were having a problem? We good?
Okay, so Mr. Stefanczyk has now made a motion
To open number 2. And who was the second on the open number 2? Mr. Canulet. All right, please vote on whether to open item number 2.
Mr. Gould, Mr. Tanner. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, item number 2 is now on the floor. Is there a motion regarding
Mr. Chairman,
item number 2?
I would move to adopt resolution, number 2 resolution. I
I'll
want to
second.
speak on it following the second.
Very well.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mr. Stefanczyk,
I'd
seconded by Mr.
like to ask the fire chief to come to the front. I want to use this opportunity for those that haven't met the new fire chief of District Number 1 to introduce Chris Kaufman as the new fire chief recently selected for Fire District Number 1. Congratulations, Chris, and you're on TV, so if you got a few words you want to say. Now it's
thank
time
you.
to do it. Late in the meeting, but it's time to do it.
I appreciate the moment. Let's bring it to a new level. First of all, I like Chairman Falconer, his opening statement in reference to better communicating to the people, so I thank you for that. It's also been my message as well with District 1 to better educate, communicate within and outside the fire department. A lot of times, the public just doesn't know what we're voting on. We have to do a better job to communicate. And the last thing, the message to all of our employees is that we're public servants first. And we need not forget that. And thank y'all for letting us come out tonight and be on the agenda. I did not bring any gloves. That was a joke.
Mr. Chairman,
You
And
don't
I'm
need-
excited, of course.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to...
Mr. Stefanczyk, can I just stand by 1 second? Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
I don't want him to leave. That's why I wanted to ask a question.
I appreciate you directing your comments through me this time.
That's what I
I
did.
mentioned it to Mr. Smith earlier, and I was going to use the opportunity in the spirit of communication to remind the parliamentarian that comments should be directed
And I
through the
did.
chair, but you didn't do it the first time, Mr. Stefanczyk. I will yield the floor now to Mr. Stefanczyk.
Mr. Kaufman, would you explain the need for this, the emergency, since there may have been some question on this? I think I've talked to both you and the legal counsel, and would you please explain that?
Absolutely.
Have him explain that, Mr. Falconer?
Mr. Kaufman, would
Yeah.
you please explain that?
Thank you. Yes, Fire District 1 is moving to secure a piece of land off of Airport Road for a future station number 18 to better serve the people, improve the PIAL rating. That area is in dire need of a fire station. We have located a piece of property, signed a contract. However, part of that agreement is to have that property rezoned. With our attorney's direction to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we could not move forward with that application process without getting an agreement tonight by resolution to lift the moratorium. So that's why we were placed on the agenda. There's some things I would like to do, survey, appraisal, environmental study within that 60-day window to secure this piece of property for a future fire station.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
I have a motion on the floor, motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Bellisario, for a resolution to vacate in part the 6-month moratorium on property I-2 and having access to Airport Road. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, there's a third item on the items off the floor. Item number 3, resolution to adopt the recommendation of the St. Tammany Parish Inspector General Task Force and develop a procedure to implement a random forensic type audit. Mr. Stefanczyk.
I'd like to move this, move that we open this for items off the floor for discussion.
Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Ms. O'Brien. Is there any discussion on the item with regard to moving it off the floor?
I would just like to say, I think it's a timeliness thing if we're trying to get a contract to do this for this year, and we're trying to follow the guidelines of the IG committee, that we need to do it very rapidly if we're going to get it, this kind of a forensic audit, this type of forensic type audit done on a portion of our finances for this year. I think it would set a very good precedent for the rest of the parish.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanczyk. Mr. Bellisario.
I hear where Steve's coming from, but I'm not in the mood to concur on it because last year we added many items to our audit and we were able to get it accomplished. We did it early. To do something like this, when nothing has gone through the legislature with an approval on that, I would think we were better off if we wait till that process is completed and then move and look at doing a forensic type audit for calendar year 2014.
Very well. Thank you. Any further discussion on bringing this item off the floor? None appearing, then please vote.
Motion fails, 8 yeas, 3 nays, 3 absent.
All right, then we'll move to the end. Mr. Sharp, do you have any items to come off the floor? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Gould? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Groby? Mr. Canulet is absent. Mr. Bellisario? None. Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Stefanczyk?
Nope.
Mr. Bender?
Yes.
All right, we have an item by Mr. Bender off the floor. Would you describe your item, please?
Yes, I would like to author a resolution thanking all of the members of our Louisiana congressional delegation for their efforts on amending the Biggert Waters Act to stop the pending drastic increases in flood insurance rates.
Could you guys come to order over there? I'm having hard trouble hearing. Go ahead.
Amending the Biggert Waters Act for a 4-year delay and limiting increases in our homeowners, property owners, to more reasonable rate increases for flood insurance. That's my resolution. An additional comment would be, I followed this, and I know our parish president did. I know she went to Washington a number of times, and I want to thank her for that.
Mr. Bender, could I ask you to reserve those comments until we get it off the floor?
Excuse me, thank you.
Please.
Yes.
I've got a motion for this resolution by Mr. Bender. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith, let's vote to bring it off the floor.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion is unanimous, 3 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Bender, for your forbearance. Please proceed.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to add, I followed this very closely, and I also want to thank some of our council colleagues in addition to the parish president. I know that at my homeowners association meetings, I asked and sent out emails asking them to please call our congressional delegation, and many, many of those people did so. This was not something we need to take for granted. This could have destroyed our economy, not only in southern Louisiana, but all border states around the country. Just as an aside item, we think of floods only on the coastline with hurricanes, but there was a big event on TV the other day, tragic, where some snow melt had blocked a river up in the Midwest, and then that blockage let loose, and a tremendous amount of water came down that river, I believe it was in Ohio, and flooded thousands of homes that had never, ever, ever been flooded. This is another good example of why this was so important. The last thing I just want to add is, it's discouraging, at least for me many times, when I watch the news and I see that we don't have, at times, bipartisanship in congressional votes. This was real bipartisanship. There was over 100 votes in the House from Republicans and over 100 votes in the House from Democrats to pass this bill, and they passed it overwhelmingly. They needed 2/3, and they got 75%. So I think we should thank all the members of our Louisiana delegation, our senators, our congressmen, for doing the right thing. And I think this was a great example of where the people speak. We got paid attention to all across the country. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to make the motion on the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Motion by Mr. Bender, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. I'm sorry, Madam
If
President,
it's
please.
all right with the chairman, I'd like to add a couple things to that. I think we should be especially proud because it was Southeast Louisiana that started this this conversation to end up where we are today, and it is tremendously important, as you just said. But in addition, I think we owe a great deal of thanks to GNO Inc. because they took this on themselves. They led it. Michael Hecht and Caitlin Burney were just, they never let up. They're the ones that built this national coalition. The two of them built this national coalition that helped get this passed, just as you mentioned with calls. We have been members of GNO Inc. for the last 2 years, and at the very minimal amount. And I can tell you I'll be coming to the council asking to raise that membership to the next level because we owe them more than we could ever pay, because it would have been devastating for St. Tammany Parish. So thank you.
Yes, and
Thank you, Madam President.
if I might add, sir.
Mr. Bender.
Thank you for catching that, because I stayed up with all of Mr. Heck's emails and so forth. And I don't know if I said this, but I want to make this clear. I wasn't the only council member going through my homeowners groups. I know that from talking to my colleagues on this council, and I just want to say a thank you to all of our colleagues, because I know this came up at the different council members' community meetings. I know it came up at the different council members' homeowners association meetings. So it was a good joint effort with GNOE, our parish president, our parish council, and all of our congressional leaders hearing what our citizens had to say. So thank you, and I'll make that motion.
Great. There's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the item?
Second here, yeah.
Yeah, seconded by Mr. Stefanski. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 3 absent.
All right, Mr. Smith, I believe that brings us to you. Do you have anything to bring off the floor? Very well. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.